I used to work for a private police/security firm as a patrol supervisor. On one of my patrol routes, we had a huge church that was also a private daycare and kindergarten. It was my responsibility to clear and secure the building every night between 3 and 4 am due to recent instances of doors being found left open in the morning. In the early 1900s, the building was a schoolhouse and supposedly a fire killed several children trapped inside. I didn't know any of this prior to working for the company. Several extremely creepy things happened while at this church. My first night there, I just walked down the very long main classroom hallway to clear all of the rooms, and when I turned around to walk back up the hallway, there was a red balloon floating in the middle of the hall that was definitely not there prior. Also, in the old pastor's office, there was a lamp shaped like a lighthouse that sat on the table in a large window. When I would pull up to the church, the lamp would be the first thing I would see in the office window. It was always turned on. However, when I would go to check/lock the pastor's office from inside, the lamp would always be off. When I would get back into the car to leave, the light would be back on again. I also had the unusual phenomena of previously closed/locked doors being found open just seconds after closing them and locking them. Another officer that filled in for me one evening quit the very next day because he reported that, as he was checking the main chapel, the pipe organ started playing itself. Myself and a buddy on my squad responded to an alarm. The incident location was an old office-type building that had been converted to doctor's offices. There was a pharmacy attached to it. Our dispatch received a motion signal from an upstairs office. Keyholder arrives on scene and we go in to secure the building. The stairs were locked behind a door that, of course, the keyholder didn't have the keys to, so we took the elevator up to the second floor. Not the most tactically sound option, I know. Elevator opens to a pitch black hallway, except for one overhead light at the end of the hall. We start checking doors, and so far, all are secured. We get to the last office, and sure enough, the door is unlocked. We make entry and observe it to be an unused office. The door opened to a sizable waiting room and reception area. There were about 10 or 12 exam rooms, all cleared with no hiccups. We exit the office and immediately, something seems off. That is when I realise the overhead light at our end of the hallway that had been on was now off, replaced by another light over by the elevators. I look at my squad mate and he is completely white. I ask him what's wrong and he says, "Weren't all those doors we just checked closed and locked?" I tell him, "Yeah, so?" But he says, "Well, now they're all standing open." Sure enough, all the offices down the hallway we had just checked were now standing open. So we start clearing offices and securing offices. We finish the last office, and on our way out, just before we turn the corner to get into the waiting area, the main door just slams shut. Then our radios start going nuts with some kind of static feedback. Now, I just want to get the hell out of there. We get back in the elevator and head down to the first floor to make contact with the key holder again. However, the key holder is nowhere to be found. I contact dispatch and request a callback number for the key holder so I can advise him of what we found. Dispatch states that the key holder was still en route to us and was advising an ETA of 5 minutes. I advised dispatch that we had already been out with the key holder. Dispatch requests I give him a call. I call dispatch, and she tells me that there is no way we were out with a key holder. She states that the alarm company had only just made contact with one. Eventually, the real key holder arrives on scene, and I ask her about the man that had led us in the building, the first key holder. She asked me to describe him, so I did. She states that sounds like one of the doctors that used to lease the office on the second floor at the end of the hall. She then states that he had committed suicide at his summer home several days ago. I still won't go back there. A traffic guy at my agency was catching up to a DUI suspect. No lights/siren. The suspect was easily 300 to 400 yards ahead at 0330 hours on a very long stretch of semi-rural roads. The left side of the street was lit by streetlights, and the right side was dark. Both cars were moving fast, about 80 miles per hour or so. His dashcam video showed the suspect's vehicle lose something from its rear, and it turned out it was the suspect's rear bumper. After the bumper stopped tumbling, the video showed a dark figure dart into the roadway from the left, the side lit by the streetlights, pick up or move the bumper, and then dart to the right side of the roadway where it was dark. The video showed nothing on the right side of the roadway when the officer drove by the area. The officer did not see this occur at the time, but instead, when he reviewed his video in the car to find out where the suspect lost his bumper, the dark figure had no reflective clothing on, as most joggers/dog walkers do in the area, and was definitely in the right place at the right time, as the officer most likely would have hit the bumper due to his speed and possibly crash. A few years back, prior to sworn LEO, I worked as a security guard at a hospital. Sounds cool, and it was, except for the fact it was 9 PM to 7 AM. I worked alone, and the hospital I guarded was abandoned. I was always a third shift kind of person. I don't get night jitters or scare easily, but this place could do it to the best of them. Every night I would walk, or ride a wheelchair, through the halls that were supposed to be empty/unused. Every night I would end up having to close doors and relock them. I would walk to one floor, move up the next, and continue on. I got a little shaky when, an hour after already walking a hallway, I would have to turn off the same hall lights and close the same doors again in the building. Or when I would be walking a hall and I would hear footsteps on the floor above me, doors opening and closing, elevators moving from floor to floor, phones ringing, nurse call lights going on, etc. There were only 3 times I got the "I hate this crap" feeling. First time, I was checking offices on the 4th floor. There was a light on in a locked hallway. This hallway hadn't been renovated since the place was built, short of electricity, so everything was from the 1920s. I unlocked the door, flipped the lights, walk out, relock the door, and turn to leave. Behind me, I hear the flip of a light switch. Through the frosted glass, I see the lights went back on. I left the hallway alone that night. Second time was riding on an elevator between floors. I was taking the elevator to the top floor, when at about number 4 or 5 floors, I hear laughing and muffled talking. It kept getting louder as I got higher. Elevator makes it to number 5, door swings open, and absolute silence. Of course, every light on the floor was on, even in the patient rooms. I checked high and low. Not a single living and breathing person in that place, except for me. Third and worst of all was an average night. I'm on the lower level, locking a door in a corridor. The door had a glass middle, but on the backside, it was covered by white tape. The room it led to was dark, and the hallway a few feet behind me was partially lit, so the glass acted like a perfect mirror. Everything normal, key in, lock clicks, turning the key. When behind me, I see the full outline of a person walk past me in the hallway. Clear as day, just a full shadow of a person walked past. I froze, only for about a second, and then ran into the hall after the supposed person. No one. Just silence. I was on duty one night at the front desk of our office when I got a call from an elderly male in a village a few miles away. He was very short of breath and wanted me to give him the number of a local doctor. I didn't have the number on hand, so I put the phone down for 2 seconds while I looked it up. When I picked up the phone again, the line was still open, but I couldn't hear anything. I tried shouting into the phone, telling the man to make any sort of noise if he could hear me, but I got nothing. I contacted the control room on another line to get them to trace the call so I could get help to the man who, I was convinced, had collapsed and was dying. When the number was traced, the local cops went round to the address which they recognized as the scene of a sudden death 3 weeks before. The sole occupant of the house had died of a respiratory illness, and the house was empty and vacant on their arrival. It would seem that I had a call from beyond the grave. I don't answer the phone anymore.